We made it to Sunday, and naturally, I couldn't end the weekend without exerting a little bit more of Animal Crossing creativity. So, today we're working on my tailor shop, but mainly the area around it. Hey guys, my name is Yugi, and if you're new here, I've been having so much fun lately diving back into Animal Crossing, and I've been dreaming of creating a forestcore island with a hint of magic. So if you like this type of content, make sure to subscribe because I come up with new videos every Saturdays and Sundays. Essentially today, I thought whenever I go to Able and Mabel's shop, well actually Mabel and Sable's shop, they're always inside, but I know they don't come out, but can you imagine how much fun it would be if you could imagine them working outside? So I wanted to create a bit of a garden for them, mainly a little outdoor tailor's garden, if you will. I have been collecting a few items that I think could be well related to the tailors and their crafts, so I wanted to make it a little bit of like a fairy garden but for the tailors right outside of their shop. And of course I had to start it with just a lot of trees, and I'm still using the same paths I did in my last video, which is this little bit of like a natural wooden, well not wooden but dirt and rock path that I got from Lily, whose creator code and channel you can find link in my description box. So if you are wondering what's all those little petal looking patterns on the floor, when I started my island again, I couldn't wait to dive into the ideas that I have, and of course I hadn't unlocked custom paths yet, which I just did, hence we're working on the shop, but I needed to map the area a little bit to get a sense of what I was going to do. So I started with these paths, and now that I actually have paths and we're putting down things, I need to work on erasing them. So Clay is actually my third villager who came to my village, and lately, well this weekend, a few of my villagers have been doing the customary giving me items that they think could help the island, and for some reason I've been getting a lot of garbage cans, just different types of garbage cans. So I think in the next video there will be garbage cans in different places. But I'm placing down the spinning wheel, and the idea for this was I imagine a bit of a Sleeping Beauty moment where I haven't watched Sleeping Beauty in a very long time, and I'm pretty sure I only watched it once, but I seem to remember the scene where you see the spinning wheel and it's surrounded by flowers and trees, so kind of like in a forest. I may be imagining things, but I thought, you know, maybe that's what I should do with it, because I've been saving all these items and I've been trying to decorate different areas of my island based on a cluster of items that I collected, and I think now is the perfect time to bring out all the tailors related one. So naturally I'm starting the holes to put a lot of trees down, and I don't have the trees yet. Unfortunately, at the time I am currently playing, the Nook's Cranny was already closed, so I thought I'll try to get as much as I can, set down the paths and make as many holes, and then, you know, in the morning I can go and buy just a whole lot of trees and we can continue decorating. So part of the challenge in this little area was because it was so specific, the items that I wanted to use, I didn't exactly have a plan for where they would go. I just had a sense of what I wanted them to look like, but it's so specific, so you will see a lot of trial and error of me trying to place down those different items. Particularly, the one I really struggle with is this old sewing machine. just because it is kind of big and I don't really like how the legs look. So I was trying to make it and place it somewhere where you can kind of notice it, but it doesn't become an eyesore. So this is a challenge I'm working with today. As usual, I always have like a bit of an idea of what I want to do in my head, and I picture the items being used in very specific ways and having some very specific backgrounds. Like lately it's been about the trees as a backdrop to what I'm placing down, but then when I place them it doesn't always seem right and it doesn't seem like it works all the time. So I feel like in this video you're going to see a lot more of me doing things and then undoing them, just because I need to figure out the best placement for it. And when I create videos, so I know there's a lot of different types of island and different types of style that people work on, and while I try to make it easier and let you guys know what the theme generally is, when I start working on those, I don't necessarily take up a theme at once, but more so what I'm feeling like seeing in the game at the moment. So I try to label it, and you might, for instance, see a lot of moments where it's looking very cool, but it's also not so much, and it's being integrated in my forestcore, and that's all because, again, just me trying to do things and trying to see what works best and what I really want it to look like. So it does require a bit of creativity as you watch, maybe, to try and figure out why I'm doing the things I'm doing. Again, I'm just a casual gamer and I'm just trying to do things that makes me happy. But I have to say though, at this point, I think I have been diving into Animal Crossing for 2 weeks now again, and I see myself continuing even deeper until I'm finished with this island. But I am starting to feel happier with how it's starting to look. At least the areas that are finished, I think, are making me happy whenever I walk through them. And sometimes, I won't lie, for instance, before I go to work, I turn on Animal Crossing and I just want to sit in an area that's fully decorated just because it seems so peaceful and so much of what I wanted it to be, but better because I didn't have it planned to the letter. So I just spend a lot of time sometimes just chilling in my Animal Crossing and not doing anything, just, listening to the waves and listening to the trees and the wind, and it's just so great. Which is why I think my favorite time lately in the game has been whenever it rains or whenever they have very cloudy or very bad weather, just because I think everything has been making my island feels more like a dream place, and the gloomy dark weather really adds to this. I have to be honest, in my previous island, of course, my favorite time was whenever we had good weather and it was sunny, which was most of the time. But in this one, I think I'm also prepping for bad weather, and it's an island that I want to feel at its best when the weather is bad. So before I dive back into the game a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now, I actually took a break for at least a year. I wasn't in the game for at least a year. As a matter of fact, and I think I mentioned this before, I sold my old Switch and I didn't play the game anymore. And I think part of the reason why that started was because I am here in the US, but I was an international student when I came. So I am originally from a very tropical island myself in the southern hemisphere, and it was just like so great all the time, having great weather, great beaches, great sun, and winter was horrible for me. Although I was the most excited for winter, it turned out to be the most horrible time of the year, just because in the East Coast it's so cold and the snow, it starts to get so depressing, and I felt like my Animal Crossing in the winter was just reminding me of that because of how white everything looks with the snow. It was basically reminding me that like it's not only depressing outside, but it's depressing in here. So I think this year I'm having a much better year than I was before. I have to say, in my experience, graduating from college has been better than being in college. So I think this is why this year I'm trying to prep for the holidays and mainly the cold weather that's coming in the game. So I'm making my escape so that I want this island to be one that looks great, that looks magical, and that just feels beautiful even in the winter when everything's going to be white. I think that's part of the reasons why I have so many cedar trees on my island, and I am praying and crossing my fingers that these all work, because I am just dreaming of the day when I am going to turn on my Animal Crossing in December. It's going to be fully decorated and all the cedar trees will have fairy lights on them. Again, it's been a while since I played, so I can't quite remember if all the cedar trees always had fairy lights on them, because in my previous island I didn't have that many spots with many cedar trees. They were mainly in like small high areas of my island, and so it wasn't many. So the ones I remember had fairy lights, and I know it's not all of December, I think it's mainly around Christmas time, but I just wanted to look this way and be magical so that I can have an escape from real life when seasonal depression hits me again. So yeah, that's what I'm doing over here. Alright, so at this point I'm changing my paths again because my plan was to have cliffs that goes from behind my residential residence services and also the tailors. So that whole area I wanted to have a cliff at the back to separate the island and kind of break up the flat land that we have so much. So I remember that I wanted to do this here, and in my previous island I had stairs right next to Able and Mabel, well, the Able Sisters shop. So I'm trying to do this again just because I liked how that was, having the stairs so close and just being able to come down and kind of like enter the shopping district that way. So I'm trying to do that again. So I'm putting down my paths, and once again I'm changing what goes into this corner, and I have a bunch of items in my pockets that I think could work with the space I'm creating. So whenever I open it, and that's why I keep changing my mind so much, I keep looking at what else I have and what else could look great, and a lot of those are not gonna go in this area, they're not gonna fit, but sometimes you never know, things tend to surprise you. Something else I keep with me now whenever I work on an area outside that I think has been super helpful, I keep a wooden, like an outdoor shed in my pocket. This is because if I need to access more things that's in my house storage, I can just put the shed down somewhere close and still be able to access everything I need without having to run back to my house so much, which has been very convenient since I kind of moved my house to the back of my island, the back right corner, so I don't have any inclines or bridges that lead up to there, so it can be quite a hassle when it takes a while to get there and going through. It's pretty much right now the abandoned area of my island because stuff is all over the place, there's trees in the way and all of that stuff, so it hasn't been very fun. So this is why for me I think it has been a great hack to just have the wooden shelf in my pocket, well, not the wooden shelf but the wooden shed, and be able to place it down whenever I need and just pull things out of it, pull things back, and it has been making me do these a lot faster, I would say. So at this point I realized I have space between the trees here, and they kind of lead to the residential services, the plaza. So I'm bringing down the paths so it can still connect. This way you can run through these areas. I quite like it when coming from the plaza you have 3 different steps that you can take to go back into the island. So 2 on the side and 1 in the middle, just because sometimes you need that accessibility, and I feel like that's what would be most realistic in life, would be to have different paths you can take to get to different areas from one point. So I don't want you to have to go around. Well, I don't want me to have to go around all the time. The other thing I placed down is the mush parasol, and the reason is because early on my island, when I was just getting started and I needed wood, I accidentally knocked down 2 trees in that area, and I never took out the stumps because I quite like how the stump look, and I think with forestcore I want a bit of natural stump as well. This way it can look like just some trees were torn down and you can sit on them. I love that you can sit on them, and you can't really do that on the other logs and items that you have other than like little stools and stuff. So I like those natural stumps, so I wanted to use it. And then I have a rock in between which has been there for a while, and I do like it, so I'm just gonna leave it there. I don't know if that's gonna change, if over time in the game it's just gonna displace it, but I'm thinking maybe if I don't touch it, it will stay here until I figure out how to get a fake rock here. I've seen so many people do rock gardens, and I am very interested by that idea. Maybe something similar. I would like to have stumps and rocks kind of like form like a bit of like a seating area, but until then I'm leaving this rock here and I'm not going to touch it at all, which is why the path I put down looks like it's broken where the rock is, but I am not touching that rock. I can bet on that. This rock is going nowhere. So alright, so now I think I want to connect more paths. I'm trying to make the path a little bit wider, and the thing that I've been allowing myself to do ever since restarting this island has been not to be too rigid with my decor and my designs, mainly because I had a normcore island before and it was very OCD. It was an OCD gamer's dream because all my paths were very symmetrical, everything was lined up, everything had sharp corners, and in this one I wanted to still look like it had some structure, still look like, okay, like, you know, it was placed down with much thought, but at the same time kind of like, oh, like it just went with the flow of nature. So this is why I'm trying not to be too rigid with how I place things down, and those paths that don't have ends next to my tree stumps, I'm just gonna leave them be, because I think it looks kind of nice and it feels interesting. I have to remind myself every time that it's a game, so it's not going to be 100% like it would in life. Although I feel like in life there's more of a chance of things being imperfect, so I don't know where that desire for perfection normally comes from so much, but I'm trying to be more relaxed. It's the next day and I wanted to see the progress on my trees and also buy some more trees to add, and guess who's on my island? You saw him, it's Leaf, which I think is perfect because now I have some flowers that I can buy from him. And I mentioned this in my last video, but I realized that I would love to have mainly white flowers around. Eventually I'm on the lookout for green mums as well because I think those look quite nice, and I will have yellow flowers but not as many as the white one, just because I want the yellow to be breaking the contrast a little bit and adding that contrast. So that's what I'm doing. And I have a lot of red around. I might keep red still, but just like priority level, it's going to be way lesser. I have one pink flower by Mabel store, and I think this one looks nice here. So of course there are things that are going to change, that are going to happen spontaneously based on what fits best in the moment, but I want there to be like some stylistic preferences that I'm prioritizing based on what my plan is for this island. Again, I want this to be my best work so I can be the one who comes in and enjoy it, but also I think the reason why I wanted to start sharing my Animal Crossing, well, my island decor and all of that on here is because when the game came out in 2020, everyone I knew were playing it, and it was just, I loved it when like I would create something and people would come visit and just see what I did, and I could go visit people's island. But I feel like even though you have a lot of players now who still play the game, who are still such fans of the game, the people I know around me personally are not anymore. So I just wanted to be able to share and be able to see what other people were doing. I think it adds to the whole sense of community that this game has to offer when you can do these things and you can visit other people's island and have people visit your island. So you never know, if you're interested in visiting mine, just comment on the video and I will open it. Like, my island so far is not finished. Well, it's barely gotten started, which is why you're not seeing a lot of the areas yet, but I just missed that and I would love to do that again. So if you're an Animal Crossing player and you want to come visit because you don't have other people's island to visit and you want people to come visit yours, just comment down below and you know, maybe we can join our Animal Crossing flights and take visits on each other's islands. Alright, so now I'm just admiring, but really what I'm trying to think of is where I can put flowers in this area. I know what I want to bring, maybe a table here and then eventually more trees in that area, because remember, it's supposed to be a forest, it's forestcore. So I've been working on finding a way to make the trees look nice and organized without having them look like they are too rigid, like it was placed down in single straight lines. So I've been trying to work with like making them look a little bit messier but still have structure so it's nice and pleasant. That's the difference between going to an actual forest, I feel like, and going to, well, maybe actually now that I think about it, what I'm going for is like if you go to an actual forest but they cleared down a few areas and make paths and kind of organized it in a way so that you can still go around, but it's all in clustered areas because you had to make some paths, and maybe this is what I'm trying to go for. And of course here I'm working differently. I'm putting down the trees, I'm putting down the paths and then putting up the trees, so which is why like I need to put more efforts towards making sure that it doesn't look rigid. So for instance, in this area where my note shop is, I quite like how I did this because it looks like it maybe all grew naturally, but then it still feels structured, but it's starting to give that forest vibe, so I quite like that. And my tree of choice to add contrast and add dimension has been the bamboos, just because I like that it's a bit smaller but also taller. It's slimmer than the other trees, the hardwood trees that we have, but at the same time it feels taller for some reason and it doesn't feel as bulky, so I like that you're able to see through it kind of and see the trees behind it. So this is why this is my tree of choice. But also the other thing is that I like how with those trees they kind of like sprout more, well, sprouts, and I can use those and place them in different areas. So this has been quite fun for me. This game I'm trying to not have so many of the hardwood and my natural fruit trees everywhere, which I know a lot of people will be absolutely appalled by, but my natural fruit trees, I think what I'm going to do eventually is to try and find an area where I can have a cluster of them and it can look like an orchard. But that's for later, because at the moment I have no idea where this is going to go. So that's something I have to think about. I think with my island being so undeveloped, it's hard to imagine what's going to go in some other places of the island. I have a few ideas, so I think maybe as I work on these and I start to see the progression and see how it's starting to look, I can think more about the finer details of where to do what and what can be done in what space, because I think it's all connected. Alright, so now I am doing, like I said, bring down more trees, more cedar trees, because I want it to look like Mabel and Sable shop, I said it right this time, were kind of like a little garden cleared in the forest, and then you have another little patch of trees that connects to this little cozy seating area here, and then kind of meet the beach. So I don't want it to feel like going to the beach is too much of a sudden stark contrast between the forest and the tree. I want it to feel like it's blending nicely with the forest, which is kind of how I remember beaches back home. We had a lot of trees around, but then it kind of like, it was very interesting how like it kind of diminishes and blends the two areas. So that's what I'm doing. After all, islands I feel like used to be forest. Islands had forests all over them before we start tearing things down and making cities and villages and all that stuff. So I'm trying to bring that back, bring it back to the point where there was more forest than we had civilization. So that's what I want it to look like. Sometimes when I'm playing this and I'm decorating my island, I'm thinking a bit about Hansel and Gretel, just because like I'm picturing that forest where they go and there's to clear out the path, and Gretel dropping all the little breadcrumbs everywhere just so that she can be fun, but also how the house look. I feel like that would be more whimsical, but I'm trying to not go so whimsical, but I feel like my Able Sisters shop is reminding me a bit of that, because it's kind of pink, has like some nice pastel brown colors, and I feel like this path is kind of like that a little bit. Not really, but it's what kind of gave me a few more ideas on maybe how I should decorate the path that takes you there. And again, I think the charm that my island is starting to get is that I have so many different types of ideas that I feel like are not really coherent together. Like I did a little circle of bamboo trees with shrubs and lamp on the left of the screen, and I just placed it somewhere because I had space and I was like, I'm just gonna do it here. And then when I do the other areas, I feel like somehow it's all coming together, but in a way that just makes it look more natural. Would you agree? What do you guys think? So that's what I'm working with. Again, so right now I think my island is still on 2-star. I've gone up 1-star, and I'm trying to do everything that I need to get up to 3-star. And I think the thing is I need more villages still, because I'm not quite there yet. I think I have about 5 or 6 of them. So as I'm doing this, there are cutscenes where I'm getting distracted because I was also working on a different area where I wanted a new village's house to go so that someone else can move, because I'm going to be needing terraforming quite soon to move on to the next area that I would like to decorate. So I need to get it done. Maybe this week this is what's gonna happen. I feel like last week was all about getting the paths, custom paths and Able Sisters. So now I'm aiming for terraforming. Alright, so I'm making some log benches because I ran out. I love using the log elements. So log stakes, log benches, log tables. I love the contrast on it of the dark wood and the lighter wood on the inside. So I'm trying to place them in a few more areas. And I feel like when sometimes you put the log benches, especially, I think I like the benches more than the tables, and I place them around between trees, it just fits so well. And maybe it's because, again, it's log, it's kind of like the cedar, so yeah, I'm liking it. Alright, so I think another thing I would also like to do is bring in some star fragments, because my first week in the game I had a meteor shower and I loved how that was, so I was just, I collected a whole lot of star fragments that I've been placing all around my village, well, my island, sorry, and I would love more, so I need to collect some more eventually, but I want to first place them among the trees, and just looks like that's how I feel like the magic comes in. Quirky little elements, but also the stars, and then it all makes it look magical, because as you walk around at night and when it's darker and the stars start to shimmer, it's the magic for me. So that's what I'm doing. Alright, so now I'm making another path because I realized I don't want it to just end abruptly here with this large clearing, and I would like to have more trees, but I'm trying to make like a little cute little interesting nook with the trees here. So what I think I'm gonna do is I pulled up one of my money trees, and I think I would like to place it here in the middle of more cedar trees, so it can look like a little bit of like a sacred tree, if you will. Honestly, this part was inspired by a little bit of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and how they have like that one tree that looks different. I think it was something about the many gods, but I forget my lores, but that's kind of what I want to do. And since I'm not adding so many of the regular trees around this island, I still want to display some of them, especially my money trees. So that's how I think I'm gonna do it. Just gonna be surrounded by a whole lot of cedar trees and just look like a special tree somewhere. Also, if you see that other tree on the right, it's gonna get knocked down, but mainly because I don't know what's gonna go in this space yet, but I think the tree is gonna be in the middle of anything I do. But also eventually I'm going to have the cliff there, so I'm just removing that one for now, so I can make space for something else that can just come in and fit the space a little bit better. I am finally putting down my star fragments around, and at this point it's just a few finishing touches. I'm also going to add a log stake right by my money tree, again just making it look like you can't quite get close to it. And voila, I think it's looking perfect. So I time travel, and we are now a few days later, because I wanted you guys to see the trees fully grown before I end this video. So my tailor shop is on the right of residential services. I have a little furnace situation here, so it looks like villagers can bring their food to this table, which it will look like once I have some DIYs for it. And then I have the path that I connected to the other side of residential services. I also have the little walkthrough where somebody left their sewing supplies out there. I just like this little table and I think it's perfect on it. I am calling this my Sleeping Beauty spinning wheel, and if somebody pricks their fingers on there, you'll know who might be responsible. You have the sewing machine on the left, and I have the clothing pole on the right, so it's perfect for the tailors. I have a few more clothes that are on mannequins outside, just like displayed throughout the path, so it looks nice. And then we have a little bit of a sacred tree, because 3 sisters and a sacred tree reminds you of anything. It reminds me of Charmed. Alright, and then I have this little cozy corner here, which I'm loving for now. Some trees are not fully grown yet because I had to move a few things around, but I think eventually it will look really nice. But I might change a few more things going forward, just because, you know, as I get more tools in this game and more DIYs, there's a lot that can come from ideas. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun working on this area and I finally feel like my island is starting to come together. So let me know, what do you do to decorate around your tailors? And I would just love to know. As usual, I hope you guys liked this video. Let me know in the comments what your favorite part was and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye!